Just a song at twilight, when the lights are low, and the flickering shadows softly come and go. Though the heart be weary, sad the day yet long, still to us at twilight comes love's old song, comes love's old sweet song.
Yes, because he never did a thing like that before, as asked to get his breakfast in bed with a couple of eggs. Since the City Arms Hotel, when he used to be pretending to be laid up, with a sick voice, doing his highness to make himself interesting to that old faggot Mrs. Reardon that he thought he'd a great leg of. And she never left us a farthing. All for masses for herself and her soul, greatest miser ever was, actually afraid to lay out fourpence for her methylated spirit, telling me all her ailments. She had too much old chat in her about politics and earthquakes and the end of the world. Let us have a bit of fun first. God help the world if all the women were her sort. Down on bathing suits and low necks, of course nobody wanted her to wear. I suppose she was pious because no man would look at her twice. I hope I'll never be like her. I wonder she didn't want us to cover our faces. But she was a well-educated woman, certainly. And her gabby talk about Mr. Reardon here and Mr. Reardon there. I suppose he was glad to get shut of her and her dog, smelling my fur and always edging to get up under my petticoats, especially then. Still, I like that in him. Polite to old women like that, and waiters and beggars too. He's not proud out of nothing, but not always. If ever he got anything really serious the matter with them, it's much better for them to go into a hospital where everything is clean. Oh, but I suppose I'd have to dring it into him for a month, yes. And then we'd have a hospital nurse next thing on the carpet. Have him staying there till they throw him out, or a nun maybe, like the smutty photo he has. She's as much a nun as I'm not, yes. Because they're so weak and puling when they're sick. They want a woman to get well. If his nose bleeds, you think it was, oh, tragic. And that dying-looking one off the South Circular, when he sprained his foot at the choir party at the Sugarloaf Mountain the day I wore that dress. Miss Stack, bringing him flowers, the worst old ones she could find at the bottom of the basket. Anything at all to get into a man's bedroom, with her old maid's voice, trying to imagine he was dying on account of her. To never see thy face again. Though he looked more like a man, with his beard a bit grown in the bed. Father was the same. Besides, I hate bandaging and dosing. When he cut his toe with a razor paring his corns, afraid he'd get blood poisoning. But if it was the thing I was sick, then we'd see what attention. Only, of course, the woman hides it, not to give all the trouble they do. Yes. He came somewhere, I'm sure, by his appetite. Anyway, love it's not, or he'd be off his feed thinking of her. So either it was one of those night women, if it was down there he was really, and the hotel story he made up a pack of lies to hide it. Planning it. Hines kept me. Who did I meet? Ah, yes, I met... Do you remember Menton? And who else? Who? Let me see. That big babby face. I saw him and he not long married, flirting with a young girl at Poole's Miriorama, and turned my back on him when he slinked out looking quite conscious. What harm, but he had the impudence to make up to me one time. Well done to him, mouth almighty, and his boiled eyes. Of all the big stupos I ever met. And that's called a solicitor. Only for I hate having a long wrangle in bed. Or else, if it's not that, it's some little bitch or other he got in with somewhere or picked up on the sly. If they only knew him as well as I do, yes, because the day before yesterday he was scribbling something, a letter, when I came into the front room for the matches to show him Dignam's death in the paper, as if something told me, and he covered it up with the blotting paper. pretending to be thinking about business. So very probably that was it. To somebody who thinks she has a softie in him, because all men get a bit like that at his age, especially getting on to 40 he is now, so as to wheedle any money she can out of him. No fool like an old fool. And then the usual kissing my bottom was to hide it. Not that I care 2 straws who he does it with, or knew before that way. Though I'd like to find out, so long as I don't have the 2 of them under my nose all the time. Like that slut, that Mary we had in Ontario Terrace, padding out her false bottom to excite him. Bad enough to get the smell of those painted women off him. Once or twice I had a suspicion by getting him to come near me when I found the long hair on his coat. Without that one, when I went into the kitchen pretending he was drinking water. One woman is not enough for them. It was all his fault, of course, ruining servants. Then proposing she could eat at our table, on Christmas if you please. Oh no, thank you, not in my house, stealing my potatoes and the oysters 2 and 6 per dozen. Going out to see her aunt, if you please, common robbery so it was. But I was sure he had something on with that one. It takes me to find out a thing like that. He said, "You have no proof it was her." Proof? Oh, yes, her aunt was very fond of oysters. But I told her what I thought of her, suggesting me to go out to be alone with her. I wouldn't lower myself to spy on them. The garters I found in her room the Friday she was out, that was enough for me, a little bit too much. I saw, too, that her face swelled up in her with temper when I gave her a week's notice. Better do without them altogether, do out the rooms myself quicker. Only for the damn cooking and throwing out the dirt. I gave it to him anyhow. Either she or me leaves the house. I couldn't even touch him if I thought he was with a dirty barefaced liar and sloven like that one. Denying it up to my face and singing about the place in the WC too. Because she knew she was too well off, yes. Because he couldn't possibly do without it that long, so he must do it somewhere. And the last time he came on my bottom, when was it? The night boiling gave my hand a great squeeze, going along by the talca. In my hand there steals another,